Good evening, fellas. Appreciate you coming, whether you're here live and in person right now, or watching on the replay. This is a real treat for us, the Southern California Football Coach Association. We've had the former Pennsylvania State champion head coach from St. Joe's Prep guest speak at our clinic in the past. I believe it was 2016, Gabe Infante, and tonight we get the opportunity to hear from the man who replaced Gabe when Gabe left. And all he's done is won, I believe, 2 consecutive state championships at the 6A level. So it's a super pleasure for me to introduce a friend and an incredible football coach and a guy that's taking great care of my son on his staff. And that's the head football coach at St. Joe's Prep in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Tim Roken. Tim, you go get him tonight.
Scott, thank you, and appreciate being invited into this clinic. And yes, I know Gabe, my predecessor, spoke a few years back, and obviously, like you said, Scott, your son has been a huge help and been a huge part of our success here and continuing here at St. Joseph's Prep. So I want to thank you all for joining tonight. Whether you're watching live or watching this on the replay, and my contact information will be here in the beginning of the slide when I go and share the screen here and get into the PowerPoint presentation. I got a lot of slides, so we're going to try and spin through them as fast as possible here, but make sure I spend time on the ones that are obviously most important. And feel free to reach out, and if you'd like the PowerPoint or would just like to talk about anything, obviously it's always good. We learn from each other. That's part of this profession, and appreciate everybody being here tonight. So we'll get rolling. Here we go. So as Scott said, obviously my name is Tim Roken, head football coach here at St. Joseph's Prep. And I started here, a little quick background on myself before I get rolling into it. I started here in 2010. I grew up in Philadelphia. I played against St. Joseph's Prep as I was growing up and going to Archbishop Ryan. Went to a small Division II school up about 2 hours northwest of here in East Stroudsburg University. Played quarterback there, and went on after that to work for the U.S. Army All-American game for about a year. And still stayed in contact with them. Fortunately, I was named the head coach in this game that was supposed to happen this past season, but obviously with COVID, we've all dealt with a lot and didn't get that opportunity. But the honor is much appreciated. And I have been here since 2010. Was a longtime assistant for 9 years. Was offense coordinator and assistant head coach for 8 of those 9 years. And was able to take over a program that obviously myself and Gabe Infante, my predecessor, who's now the running back coach at Temple University, and obviously many others within our staff, into building our program up to a level that in a national prominence that I played against in the early 2000s. Was the last time they were back at that time, back at that level in terms of rankings and things like that. So again, much appreciated for being here. I'm very grateful for that. And let's get rolling on, building a national program and program development here. So, I think the biggest, we'll roll through all these, and these are the topics kind of we'll hit on as we go through. I think, when you started out, obviously a lot is built around your mission and the core values, that you want to instill in your program and the young men that you're developing. And we all obviously love the game, and we're developing them in terms of their skill sets and things like that. But as we all are doing this, it's really to develop great young men to go on to be great husbands and fathers, and as they are, great sons at this time in their lives. And and it's building that process for success, culture, mindset, and so on down the line here that we'll hit slide by slide here as we go through. So without further ado, with our mission statement, it's really, we want to make sure that our players, when they leave our program, they're going to lead a more meaningful and successful lives because of their involvement within the program. And that through the core values of faith, family, and what I call future, which is which I consider obviously their academics and football. And through the faith part is making sure that they develop and appreciate an understanding with a relationship with God and its importance that to live a more fuller life. And same thing with that relationship is understanding how to build those relationships with each other in terms of their teammates, their coaches, their families, their teachers, and building those relationships around values of trust, love, and honest communication. I really feel that they're a true foundation of any relationship. And I think when we talk about trust and love, which is talked a lot about within our program and our young men, these guys got to be able to trust the guy next to them that they're going to do their job. And obviously there are hard times and adversity that we're all going to face within our program, and mistakes that are going to happen on the field, and maybe making sure that we're able to love each other up and understand that we all could be on those shoes, and we got to be able to wrap our arms around one another and push each other through together. And when it comes to honest communication, obviously sometimes that's tough love in some of those conversations with young men and the families, but you got to be honest. As I tell the guys, we're honest with you when you hold you to a high standard, right? Because we only want the best for you. And, they might be, not so understanding there in the beginning as 13, 14, 15-year-old guys kind of coming into the program. But, with the in the time that I've been here and the guys that come back to our program and have an appreciation for where they come from, and really have an appreciation for those conversations when we had them, and they learn by those experiences. As we're developing these young men, it's almost creating a platform for them. And developing the person, right, and within our school, developing the mind, body, and spirit, through the school and the program, and becoming men for and with others. Through that, we want to develop leadership in all of our players and empower them to be great leaders. And we do that a lot through service and community service, which I'll talk about here tonight. But also, we talk a lot about in terms of our program that a player-led team is always going to be the coach-led team. If these young men can empower each other and hold each other accountable, when they're out in the field, obviously on Friday and Saturday nights, as you know, right, it's their show, right? We take a back seat at that point, and they got to be able to hold each other accountable and lead in that way to be able to move forward. Another piece to it, right, creating that platform is their academics, which is a huge piece. We're a very high academic institution. As young men, who's at some point, it's changed a little bit over the years, but at one point we're on an 8-point grading scale and had to take 4 years of Latin along with 2 years of modern language. And, that wasn't so easy for young men coming in and really developing, their skill sets academically as a whole. And it changed at some point. Now it's 2 years of Latin, thankfully, and 3 years of modern language, but still always holding them to a high standard on and off the field. Then within our team, we want to make sure that we're developing every player's football acumen, defining roles for each of them. We give or take between 75 to 90 within our JV and varsity program. And obviously there's only 22 on the field at one time, 11 on the field at one time. We're not good. We're not just coaching up the top 11, right? And we're not just coaching up, those 22 on offense and defense. It's making sure that everybody has a role and they understand it. And usually early on, there's tough years of playing scout team and working through those hard times, but just understanding that they're always getting evaluated within those times. And it's about competition and being able to trust in that process as they go forward. We're always going to reward loyalty, and competition is something that we breed in these guys. Whether it's turnover Tuesday or competition Wednesday, and having those different days of the week to get those guys just a little extra juice during the week and competing against each other. Our objective is not necessarily, when I say this, and we've said this as a program, it's not to necessarily be ranked number one in the country at the end of the year, right? They're great and the wins are awesome and we appreciate them, but it's really about just going about things the right way and to be the best high school football program in the country in everything that we do, right? Our coaching staff, right, and their development, we are blessed, or I've been blessed in being able to take this program over, going on my third year now. And the core group of our staff, when I took over, I had been here for 9 years at the time, and a core group of our staff had been here for 7 years. And so I was very grateful that they all wanted to stay on board and continue continue the tradition here and developing these young men and developing them in terms of having great lives as they move forward here. And whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's our strength and conditioning program, to leadership and community service, the clinics that we do, the camps that we do, the parent involvement, right? Knowing how to travel, knowing how to manage their time, knowing how to watch film. We want to be the best in everything that we do, and we're holding each other to a very high standard within that. And our plan overall is making sure that we're teaching these young men to work. It's a hard thing these days in terms of competition. In colleges, you see in the transfer portal, and it's kind of taking the competitiveness out of it a little bit, where guys feel like they can if they're not happy, they can just go and take their ball and go somewhere else, instead of jumping down, going through adversity, going through hard times, and competing and earning their way. We've been blessed to have some great players, and we always preach in terms of going offense and defense, right? We're going to iron sharpens iron. We're going to find the best competition around. With our schedule and things, it's we play a very tough non-league schedule because it doesn't affect us in terms of playoffs, and so we're going to find the best around so that we find out where we need to be better at. I remember earlier on in my career in 2010 and 2011, I think we went 11-11 in those 2 years. And even in the 13-14s, we were playing the big schools up north, and Don Bosco and St. Joe's Montbell and Bergen Catholic. And it was like Groundhog's Day every week, and 35-0 at halftime. And as a young coach, I didn't understand it at first. But you really get to understand what needs to be fixed. You learn a lot about your players. You learn a lot about your staff. And when we come back to the state in Pennsylvania, our league, the guys play with so much more confidence because of the competition that they faced earlier in the year. And then we're grateful enough to be able to make it to the big lights at the end of in the middle of December there in the championships in Hershey. They've been to that stage. They've played under the big lights. They've played against great competition, and it's just about going out and playing the game that they love at that point. And again, it's about making them work harder than they ever worked before, and sacrificing for one another. We obviously had talked about in terms of setting a standard very high. Effort and discipline are two big things. With myself and our staff, it's you got to bring the 1-2. And we ask for great effort. And when I talk about discipline, I talk really more about self-discipline. Right? It's not telling you to run through the line, not to the line, or make sure, or run around the cone, or 2 times around the cone, whatever the drill may be or the instruction may be. It's not as if they're doing it when we tell them to do it, but it's more about, are they doing it when no one's watching, right? Are they holding themselves to that same standard? So it's more about self-discipline for myself and making sure those guys can look at themselves in the mirror and hold themselves to that standard, and to live every day, your life to that standard. As we all know as coaches, there's a lot of life lessons that you'll learn through this great game that we've a lot of us played and now coached. You have to take that same approach off the field as well. We have you always want to have a plan in terms of getting started, and obviously you got to follow a process, and have a commitment to that process. And we talk about in terms of and I talk to our guys a lot about when we go to in terms of your academics, combining that school and football, you got to take the same approach in everything that you do, right? As much as you're preparing with purpose and effort and technique, and watching film and going to practice and working your techniques, is the same thing as sitting down and preparing for those quizzes or preparing for those tests, and working your efforts and techniques and your homeworks. And then it's just from a competition standpoint, yeah, on the field, you're competing against the person across from you, right? And when it comes to the classroom, you're competing against yourself. Don't settle for average. Don't settle for the B. Strive to be great. And when you're going through that, adversity, and you're learning by that, and you continue to compete, it's only going to help you build confidence. And then obviously, as we all know, it's about finishing, right? It's not about how you start, right? We got to finish, as an individual and as a program. Culture is the single most important aspect, of your program. You can't compromise that, and that's got to be protected at all times. We've talked about brand a lot. When Gabe was here early on, it was something that just got embedded into the program, and that was something when I took over, it was like, oh, what's going to change? And so the core values that we sat down and we talked about when we first embarked upon this program back in 2010. Those are the things that we believe in and we live by. So those things weren't going to change. Right? We might do a different drill in practice. We might do a little something different in terms of a different play or a different scheme every once in a while. But listen, when it comes down to the core values and the culture, those things that we've been built on and have had success with, we're going to keep the same. And there's no doubt when these young men have that extra layer of toughness and resilience, and belief in one another, it's very hard to defeat a program and a team that just trusts and loves one another and really wants to finish together. I'm a big mindset guy. I think it's really about waking up every day, having the mindset of and how you're going to approach your day, and that goes throughout, right? That's the classroom, that's work, that's practice, whether it's the games, right? Whatever it may be, we want to have a positive mindset as we approach those things. And I talk about here in the first piece, right? It's teaching people to think about the right things, and understanding competition, right? A lot of young men nowadays, want that self-gratification, or they want the 5 stars, or they want to get the big Division I scholarships, or, because that's what they either have seen some guys in our program get to at some point, but they just don't understand how they got there. And it's teaching them how to compete, understand the difference between competition, conflict, and cooperation. A guy gets beat and everybody goes crazy. Now that young man thinks, he gets discouraged, he gets upset, and gets upset with a lot of guys that feel like almost like they're picking on him. It's not. It's, hey, you gotta take that adversity. You gotta embrace that, and appreciate your competitors. Right? They're going to make you better. They're going to show you. And as I talked about earlier, when we played those, when we play that national schedule and those teams, right? We appreciate our competitors because they're going to be able to make us better and find out where we need to improve in. Teach these young men to be internally driven and process oriented and not result focused. Again, like I talked about in terms of the scholarships and where they want to be at some point. It's keep your head down, stay humble, stay hungry, keep working, and let's see where the cards lay, after all that is said and done. Because sometimes, you succeed by accident, and you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror and understand sometimes, right, there's false positives there, and you got to be able to get better from them. We talk a lot about the roles of success and failure. Right, this is the conversation between Saban and Belichick that a lot of people look back on in that HBO special or Netflix special, whatever that was, and talk about being on top of the mountain. Right, is it harder to be on top of the mountain, or is it harder to kind of go through the failures and learn by them? And there's no doubt it's harder to, it's harder to deal with success, I believe. And I just speak that from experience within our program. Those years early on were tough, and 10, 11, and 12, and then we rattle off, and 13 through this past year, we've won 6 of the last 8 state titles and competed in 7 of them. So we've had a lot of success within our program, but obviously each team has a 1-year life expectancy, and you got to iterate those core values and letting these young men understand that last year was last year. Those older brothers are gone. We got a new set of leaders, and we got to start this thing all over again. And it's not just because we walk out there and we have a nice ranking next to our name, or have the fancy uniforms, or whatever it may be, and have some players that everybody kind of talks about. That's not just going to get it done, right? We can't just walk off the bus and win the stare down and think that we're just gonna roll over and win every game. That's not going to happen. We got to get back to work, and and young guys that come into our program, it's like rings and jackets. They just think it happens, and so that's making sure that those young men just going back to square one and letting those guys know that they're in the position that they are because of the guys that came before them, right? And the rankings and the national schedules and the uniforms and the Nike stuff, and that's all great. But, when you come into this building, it's about going back to work, and you just got to have an appreciation for those things, and appreciation for the men that came before you that set you up for the success that we've had as a program. Another one, right, we talk a lot about is understanding the relationship with fear. We deal with teenagers, right, and at a very awkward time of their life, and they're trying to kind of figure themselves out, and they get the pressures at home from their parents and people on the outside, and it's really trying to focus on the bubble, right, and control what you can control, and trust the guys that are in the bubble that are going to shoot it to you straight. And you're going to have your fears, but it's how you manage them, right? Obviously, fear is like fire, right? Fear can cook food for you. Fear can warm your house. Fire can cook food for you. Fire can warm your house. Fire can be great, right? But fire, right, if you let it affect you in a different way, can be detrimental to you, right? It can burn your house down, right? It can burn you. It's finding that balance, right, and being able to trusting yourselves and trusting the people around you to be able to work through those adversity and those hard times. As a young man here we see in the middle here is Casey Stevenson, was one in my going 11 years here now, is one of the best leaders we've had within our program, without a doubt. He went up to Bucknell this past year, started as a freshman on the offensive line. Just he just understood it, and talk about a young man, as you see in this picture, just everybody locked in and rallying around him, and was just an unbelievable leader for us. And we've had so many through our program, and I think it really obviously started with my long-term mentor and predecessor, and Gabe Infante was an incredible leader and set the tone from the beginning. And I fortunately obviously was able to take over a few years ago, and like I said, the core group of our staff has been together now for a long time, and just being able to continue to hold them to the highest standard and develop leaders year in and year out. When we look at the characteristics of leadership, right, the young men truly care about the program and everybody involved to make this place great. We talk about trust and love, right? Having that trust, being able to trust those guys and the actions and their decisions on and off the field, and having a respect for them, right? They grow throughout this process. They work extremely hard. We're going to reward loyalty in that way. And, but these guys, in terms of where they get to and hold themselves accountable and holding each other accountable, like we talked about in terms of a player-led team, right, is always going to be a coach-led team, and humble, right? Because if you don't stay humble, right, this game and life will, so it's really just keeping your head down, staying focused, working through those hard times, and trusting the people around you, but staying humble when good things come to you. and understanding, right, being grateful for those things as well. And then in all those actions and all the things that you do, you can have great effort, you can have great discipline, right? But how consistent are your actions in all those things that you do with it? As just listing them out there, right? The characteristics of a leader, that would go about, and there is at the bottom, right? A player-driven team, right? Built with leaders, and those leaders within the program and within the team, right, are aligned in the organization. So leadership obviously is a big piece, and what we've done, I think, was pretty special within our program over the years is we do a service trip every year. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it last year because of COVID, and then we're going to do something within the city this year and be able to still have these group dynamics. But we want to teach leadership through service, and having that power of gratitude and be able to think beyond yourself. And dealing with the issues that, we're going to face them up front and have those hard conversations, and with some things that tear teams apart, and individualism and dishonesty and arrogance, and trying to get out of things and just trying to cut corners. We got to be able from myself down, be able to hold those guys accountable and teaching those young men, right, that how that can be detrimental, right, to their success. And what they want to become in life. And, when those guys buy into that and those older guys grow up and being able to kind of, again, trying to, they become the leaders of the program and holding everybody else accountable as well. I'll run through these here, right? This is something that we talk about within the program. I'm very big into the servant leader model, right? So what we'll do is, in terms of these 6 levels, of commitment and these 6 pillars, where are you on the board, right? Or where do you rank yourself, right? Are you a 1, right? Or are you a rebel, right? That's kind of not bought in at all, and you're thinking about quitting, right? Or are you a malicious obedience? You're always complaining, right? It's hard to get you going, right? Things aren't going your way, right? There's always somebody else's fault or somebody else's problem. Are you a 3, right? Are you detached a little bit, right? Do you just not really know where you are? Are you tentative? Where are you at in those first 3, and are you on the other side of it, right? And are you enthusiastic cooperation? Life is about choices, right? So are you going to make your choices, right, to be the leader, right, and set the example for one another, right? And sometimes they feel like, guys got to within their peers, they get nervous about speaking up and being the guy that wants to set the good example, because that might not be the cool thing to do in their eyes, right? But when it comes down to it, they're the things that are going to help us win and setting the example. And number 5, being a heartfelt commitment, right? And then number 6, right, creative excellence. And we've had and blessed to have a ton of young men come through our program that they might have been 2, 3s, and 4s as they kind of work their way into it, but ending on the upper end of that 4, 5, and 6, which we're blessed here for that. And so we'll hand these guys as one of the first classes we'll have in our leadership kind of in our leadership classes in the off season. And this is the first one, right? We want to be honest with yourself and rate yourself in terms of your commitment level, right? From your commitment to your confidence, to your composure, to your character, right? Where do you put yourself, right, within the program at this time, right? Relating back to that servant model, right? And those different pieces there, right? And then from a vocal leader, right, to being a guy that wants to encourage, right? Or refocus, right? Being a team builder, right? Are you an enforcer, right? And we'll do this in the beginning, and then when we get through, the different steps within our off season in terms of the leadership, we'll then again hand these out at the end and kind of re-rate them, re-rank themselves and where they're at. And again, like you talked about in terms of being able to look yourself in the mirror and hold yourself to that high standard, and then seeing how much you feel like you've grown over that time throughout the off season. Here, as I talked about the leadership, so this This started back in 2011. Was the first one we took. This is in order, in chronological order of where we've been to. So what we've done is, we've taken our team to a different part of the country, each year, starting in 2011, to do community service in a different part of the country, and take our guys out of the city, take our guys out of the state, and let them see the struggles and how how people live in a different part of the world. And it's opening their eyes to some guys that never been out of Pennsylvania or city of Philadelphia, and getting them to a different part and seeing what it's like there, and just doing, and then being able to give back in that area. Yes, there's a football piece that surrounds it. Obviously, as you can see, these are some major Division I colleges that we built relationships with, and what we'll do is we'll go to the university, we'll stay on campus, we'll eat in the dorm, or excuse me, we'll stay in the dorms, we'll eat in the cafeterias for our meals. We'll do service. This is usually about a 3 to 4 day trip. We'll do service in the area, starting at 8 in the morning to about 3 in the afternoon. We come back, we have lunch, we go, we have lunch, we go back out, we have practice. We usually link up with a local high school and try to get practice time in, try to get some 7-on-7 in. And then really the most important part of taking the trip is we'll come back and we do reflection at night. And again, like we said, we break the guys up, and the older guys with younger guys, and offensive guys with defensive guys, and an O lineman with a defensive back, whatever it may be, and trying to kind of mix that up a little bit and put those guys in different groups to be able to work together and get to know each other and throughout the day. And we'll do reflection at night. We'll talk a little bit, obviously a lot about within what the program is about and where we need to get to. But it's really cool, and watching the guys stand up and give each other shout outs in terms of, Johnny really did a great job, and, helping, when we went to Virginia Tech, we were building the foundation of homes, Habitat for Humanity. And with all honesty, I was a little nervous because we got a bunch of 14 through 18-year-olds and, building the foundations for a house. I'm just blessed that they haven't called us and told us that the houses fell in at this point. But in terms of just having them work together and build build that leadership through service, and we've done all types of things. Obviously, with the first one, like I said, was when the tornado hit Tuscaloosa, and we went down there and did disaster relief, and that was probably the hardest because we cleaned up just debris for days in the heat, and we did 4 days of it and didn't really put a dent into what was there because there was so much. And that was probably the toughest because the guys didn't really see kind of the results of what they've done. But like we said, building homes with Habitat for Humanity. We worked with, Hunger Alliance. We're working with children. And, I always enjoy those. Like last year, we went down to Clemson, or 2 years ago, went down to Clemson and worked at the Little John Community Center. And it's always good when you see our guys, around little kids. They almost become little kids again, and just trying to build relationships with young men within those areas, young men and women within those areas, boys and girls that maybe don't have moms and dads at home or live the life that they live, and those guys, our guys made their week by just being around them and getting to play games with them, and just again building relationships. And we still get letters, to some of our guys and to the program from some of the youth programs that we've been involved in. So I think it's really a great deal for our program that we've done. And there's no doubt that we come back as a better team when we come off this trip because of some of the conversations that we've had. And again, just working guys in different group dynamics to build leadership through service. Chemistry obviously is a big part of this game and where we need to get to, and to have success. And, the leaders are going to drive the bus. A lot of people want to, know what our secret sauce is and how we've been so successful over the years. And it's been our culture. We've been able to be consistent with it. And as the young guys grow up to be, veterans within the program, they they appreciate the tradition. They appreciate the older guys that coached them up and put their arm around them, but also gave them some tough love sometimes and built them to where they were, and they can, and that just cycles through a year in and year out. And we've been blessed to be able to coach some great young men that really set a great example for the rest of the program. And building that family atmosphere, building community. I tell you what, this was the hardest year with that, as all with the pandemic and not being able to, very isolated, not being able to have fans, or I know many of them might not even played this year. We were fortunate enough too, but it was a very difficult year in that sense, in not being able to get together and build that community and having family events to be able to get our guys close together. Like I said, not being able to do a service trip. But we want to make sure that we're always aligned in that way, and we're pulling these guys closer together. I think your staff is very important, right? You don't want to hire yes men. Conflict is not only healthy, right? It's necessary. We want to hire men that have the same values, and developing great young men, and teaching them the life lessons through this game. With our coaching staff, we've been successful. And just like I said, right, a lot of guys have come back or have stayed on board through my time here. And, to have two head coaches within the last 11 years, but it never changed. The goal was always the same. And, blessed to be able to coach some guys that that are now back coaching with us, that we coached at one point, that played for us, and want to come back and give back to the program and give back to see this tradition continue. Coaching goals, you always want to set goals, obviously, for your players, but making sure you're setting goals for your coaches as well. And it's really about developing the depth, developing roles, making sure they're building relationships with those young men, because the better relationship, right, the more they're going to be able to hold them accountable, the more they're going to be able to push them, and it's about maximizing the potential of the team. Coaching philosophies are very important. First things first, you got to leave your ego at the door, right? We're all in this thing together. And we're going to work through the hard times, right? But when we're having those closed door meetings, right, those things got to stay in between the those classrooms or those doors, and making sure that we're all on the same page when we get out. And you can't be sensitive, in this game, in this coaching, in this lifestyle, right, in coaching, right. You got to go with the hard times. You got to learn by them and continue to move forward and do what we do best, and that's coach football. Strength and conditioning, a huge part. I've been blessed. DeAndre Swift's father, has stayed on board with us and continue with our strength and conditioning program. Does a phenomenal job at developing these guys. We're a multi-joint based ground, program in terms of our lifts. We test and bench, hang, clean, and squat. We do annual functional analysis on these guys. Speed and agility. We have a track guy that works with our speed guys. It's just, those two are very important, as you see, in terms of the college level, right? Normally the first guy that they bring with them, right, is the strength and conditioning guy, right, or the athletic trainer, right, whatever, those guys, and make sure that, they have their players in the right shape, and injury free, and be able to be on the field. In terms of the plan, right, you always want to make sure you have in terms of the phases that you go through, right? We have a preseason phase, we have a competitive phase, right? And then we have that postseason phase, right? And we work our way through them. This is just a sample kind of a yearly glance, right, as we're working through June, July, and August, right, as that preseason. Obviously, September, October, November, we want to kind of maintain there as we're working through. And then obviously the off season, we're getting right back into it a few weeks after we end the season. Whether that's in December or the beginning of January, and then working our way through to start off a new year. As we go through, right, as many will know, right, you want to go through those phases in terms of working through, right, in the beginning in terms of high reps, right, lightweight in terms of working through that, right, hypertrophy, right, max strength, right. We're in a spot right now where we're lifting for power, coming off the power and the max outs, and getting ready to kind of convert into kind of, this summer session of ours right now, going into June, when, we're 4 days a week in June and July in terms of practice. We ask our guys to come in 3 days a week to get 3 lifts in and trying to kind of start that, winding down a little bit, right, but maintaining as we get closer here to the start of the season. This is just a base kind of workout that we have in terms of when we do 3 days a week, right? We'll do a max upper, we'll do a max lower, and then we want to have an explosive days, right? We want to get our cleans in, and we'll split that up throughout. We'll test the guys in January when we come off of the season. We'll test, or when we start up the weight room in January, we'll test them in March, right before spring break. We're actually going to test in about 2 weeks when we finish out. The school year here in the middle of May before they hit finals, and then we'll test again at the end of July to kind of make sure their progress is staying, is moving upward and being where we need it to be. Nutrition. A lot of these young men and families, don't have the darndest thing, and they feel like they can eat burgers and pizza and all that. And some guys can get away with it a little bit more others, but it's business decisions, right? You got whatever you're putting into your body is what you're going to get out of it in terms of, especially when you're coming to your workouts. We've got to make sure that we're eating and hydrating right prior to our workouts, and then as well as make sure that we're getting the right supplements in us to make sure that we get the most out of our workout by eating the right things afterwards. Our offensive line coach does a great job with the offensive line and having those guys fill out food logs every week and just maintain in terms of seeing what they're eating as they go through. We have a Gatorade partnership that continues to pump in terms of the gummies and the pre-workout stuff and the shakes at the end, and just making sure that we're finding a way to make sure we're getting the right supplementation into our young men's bodies as they go through the off season and then even during the season as well. This is just a sample diet plan that we show to the families in terms of, when they're starting out, kind of basis of, what they should be getting in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in terms of what they're putting into their body and throughout the day, and being able to spread those things out. This is just a sample of what Coach Sugden, our offensive line coach, does with his food logs and filling that out as they go through there for the week with those guys. Academic support, right? Obviously, we talked about academics, a huge piece within our school. Very rigorous program academically, and so it's setting up a support for these guys throughout the year, whether it's preseason, making sure they got their summer readings done. You got the incoming freshmen, right? That we got to make sure that they're going to make a good adjustment, a simple adjustment. We have a young man, right, that maybe struggled a little bit or trying to get correct recovery. And moving forward to next year. You have your in-season. We have our in-season sheets. We do study hall for 45 to an hour after every day of school. So we practice later. We won't go out to practice till 4:30, and then we'll go to about 6:30 or 7 o'clock. And then our guys go home and they got 2 to 3 hours of homework every night, and it just keeps coming. So, it's a commitment, but our guys get into a rhythm and they understand time management. And it obviously sets them up as they're going through their time here on how to manage it when they get off into college and get into the real world, and just managing their time. And, that's really what it comes down to in terms of being able to be successful within our school and in our program. Recruitment, right, gets bigger and bigger, earlier and earlier every year. Just make sure you're making your players and your parents aware, right, knowing the NCAA rules, meeting with the parents annually, setting up your recruiting calendar, make sure, you have coaches. Coach Morrison's son does a phenomenal job for us in terms of being our recruiting guy and staying close contacts with the rapport that we have with those colleges, and making sure we're sending out our prospect sheets and with all of our guys and their huddle links and their height weights and their GPAs and their SATs and whatever information that can be beneficial for them in terms of evaluation for our guys. We make sure we get that to them, and coach comes in, I hand them a packet, right? Again, for the high school coaches out there, right, it makes those conversations a little bit faster and easier, and it's on to the next coach that's sitting out in the hallway and waiting to come in, and making the most of the time that we have with those coaches, and being able to get to as many coaches as possible and get that out, and promoting our guys in that way. I tell you what, though, and And with all due respect to the college coaches out there, and I know a lot of coaches do it the right way, and but it's demanding honesty, and demanding professionalism. Right? We got to find a way to protect our guys. Guys want to come in and ask me about this. We have a wall of shame in my office, and there's guys that just don't go about it the right way and have respect for just the way the process we feel like should be handled in a way to protect our kids. There's a lot of it's a business. I get it, and sometimes everything that goes on the recruiting trail doesn't always get back to the head coach. So we've had numerous colleges that have been on the wall, and all we ask is, and we say is, you can't recruit our guys until myself as the head coach, right, speaks to the head coach, and we square things off and we get on the same page, because there's a lot of colleges that our kids may have opportunities for. And if I can't trust you as a coach and what you're doing at your program and how you're handling the business of recruiting our young man, then he's going to have other options. And I'd rather put him with somebody that I know that he's going to get taken care of, and that it's, again, honest conversation, right, and just being professional. But that's a piece that's always catches some raises some eyes and gets some questions about. But again, there's just I know there are a lot of people who do it the right way, and it's just a way for our to be able to protect our kids, and it's just about being professional, be honest, and having reasonable expectations when it comes to that. Guys always want to know how they can help in the process, and as you can see here, right, 4 straight freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, it doesn't matter, right? Have good grades, be coachable, work hard, and obviously there's at different times in your time here, right? There's going to be different things that you can work on, right? From as to college questionnaires early on, preparing for your PSATs, right? Your SATs, getting your core GPA correct, continuing to update your highlight film, building relationships with those coaches, and then and as you're a senior, right? If you haven't had an opportunity to look at schools or have an opportunity to have an options of schools, right? Just continue to stay with that process. Everybody's process is different. Everybody gets offers at different times, right? And it just continue to stay humble, stay hungry, continue to work, and things will work out, right? We've had pretty good success over the years in terms of young men going on and playing at the next level. And as many of you know, in terms of how these guys how the coaches are going to evaluate, it's the eyeball test, right? Speed, right? What's their academics like, right? What's their leadership, work ethic, and coachability? And then it's like, all right, well, let's turn on the film now. Let's watch, right? That's the last piece, right? We want to make sure they're getting a young man that understands, how to go about their business. They're not going to be an issue in the classroom, right? And understand how to handle themselves off the field as well. GPA, obviously, we talked a lot about, and in the academics, I give the analogy to our guys with being an East Coast guy, right? It's like taking 95 South from Boston to Miami. All right, there's a lot of exits on that road, right? Going all the way down to Miami, and you look at all those exits as colleges, and you come in with a 4.0, and the lower that GPA gets, right, the more the more exits are going to be closed. All right, so give yourself as many options as possible. Continue to keep that GPA high, and you're going to have more options to be able to pick from, as your time goes. And everybody wants to be a 5-star and 4-star and all that good stuff, right? In terms of the rivals and the rankings and all that stuff, right? But why don't we worry about being a 5-star person first and a 5-star student, right? And good things will come for you. We talked about the core GPA and making sure you're set there with the sliding scale, especially. There's some things we talk about within the from a recruiting standpoint in terms of the academics. This is just I talked about the prospect sheet we'll hand out. We give the parents kind of a recruitment guide of how they should go about their process, and then we'll hand this to every coach that walks in the building. And they have just some understanding of who our guys are. Just some key things on them in terms of their height, weight, GPAs or SATs, huddle links, and things like that, just to get a jump start for the recruiting process. I said, everybody's process is different. I love to show this to our families. Since 2011, we've had 110 young men that went on to go play college football, right? This past year, we had 20 seniors, all 20 that wanted to play had an opportunity. The year before, we had 16, right? All 14 out of 16 that wanted to play had an opportunity. And people within our area, right, that know who we are as a program, some of them think that we just got some last names running around. And I know we just had Harrison and Trotter graduate, and we had Runyon's son here. But you know, that's a very limited number. And as you can see, right, we don't have all guys that go to FBS schools. We've had them go to some great schools, and a lot of those guys that went to the FBS level too, a lot of those guys were walk-ons as well, and earned their way. But a lot of our guys kind of fall in that FCS level and Division II, Division III, high academic D3s. As I said, it's a very high academic institution that we're at right now. But everybody's the point of this, right, is everybody's process is different, and you know, continue to work through it, have a plan, and for you know, I could probably count on one hand of the young men that went on to the next level that maybe didn't fall on the spot that or level that they fit, you know, when they went through the process.
Yeah, Coach. I'm gonna have to go ahead and cut you off here.
Yeah,
but,
no problem.
Yeah, it's okay.
I got here to the end. This was the last kind of slide here anyway. So.
And then unfortunately, we can't do questions, but I know you gave out the contact info. So for the viewers out there, if you want to send Coach a question, it'll be in the beginning of this presentation. Coach, thanks again for coming out. It was good stuff. Y'all have a good program, and yeah, have a good rest of your night.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me. And like you know, like you said, if you have any questions about the program or you know, or have any questions on the PowerPoint here, or just want some information on it, please feel free to reach out. And you're always welcome at St. Joseph's Prep coming out here in Philadelphia. So take care. Thank you, and God bless.